creatures that you see on movies everywhere. Um, the the grays are basically an infusion of different genetically manipulated animals. They're mostly ants. Ants have communication that is telepathy communication, where they can communicate by frequency on their little antennas. They can literally beam different frequencies into one ant to the other, and they can share a consciousness as a whole. I had no idea about this. Um, so they took that DNA of ants, they completely re-engineered how an ant operate, and then they were able to create in a human form, and not in a human form, but they were able to edit that gene to the human genome, so they can make humans. They can make a human creature that can communicate telepathically using different DNAs from multiple animals on the planet. This is going to be very hard for you to believe, but it's true. They were also trying to do that with dolphins. They were trying to take DNA samples of dolphins. They were trying to remap the whole DNA of the dolphins. They were trying to understand and extract some of that information and infuse that with different DNAs, and create a creature where it could communicate telepathically. And then they were trying to make a super creature human. Well, it's not a human, it's a creature basically with different DNAs. And they were trying to make the creature basically the whole body structure is so radiated, it's incredible. They're using mercury and underage girls rather they clones in labs, because they can clone a human and claim that it's not human because it's their own creation. So they had a bunch of military personnel in this private sector places. They were extracting DNA samples from them to make a clone human for testing. And they had little girls, beautiful children sitting in this laboratory, and their main function was to give birth to these creatures. And they were infusing mercury and different chemicals, radiation on the belly of the little girls to re-engineer and re-added the genes, while the embryo, the humanoid, was being infused and changed. The DNA was being changed while it was being created. And they were very successful at creating these creatures, but the human clones, they died because of radiation poisoning, as well as all sorts of chemicals that was extremely painful for a human clone to endure. So that was how they were doing back in the day. Nowadays they have the silos, where it's more humane way of editing human DNA in this silo things. It's like almost like the bag where they just release on the news, where they were able to give birth to a sheep inside a Ziploc bag basically, and they were injecting that sheep with all the nutrition and things like that. Well, now it's more sophisticated, it's a little bit more humane, where they can make a superhuman, robot human, in these creatures. They can take a DNA from all insectoids. They can take a DNA from all sorts of different animals out there, and then they can infuse and create a creature. But just by mapping the whole human genome, the whole brain and psychological patterns, they were able to map the entire human brain, so that they can create a better creature. And that was like, those grays are basically, they have like a hot iron. They neuter them because their genders, their little penises things, is always leaking this chemical that is extremely radiated, and they don't feel radiation basically because their whole structure of their genes are radiation proof. And they were sending these creatures out of space to be able to stay in space for as long as they could, because the human body cannot stay in space for too long. It requires gravity. It requires there's a lot of human mistakes when it comes to space agencies and things like that, and it's easier to just make a creature that is able to be in outer space for as long as it can without needing all the nutritions that a human body needs, and all the environmental, psychologically, as well as entertainment and things like that, because a human is very fragile, and it's not safe to have a human out in space. So they were creating these android type creatures to go out of space and just do whatever they could to be out there and understand the space and all that. And that was back in the 50s, 70s, and 80s. All this gene editing, all these psychological behavior patterns, all this information was brought into the private sector, and all these programs got completely upgraded to a more funded, a more controlled environment on the ground and things like that. And they had all sorts of, man, it was insane, man. They had like those like human animal hybrids that is just freaking disgusting. It's so that was one of the some of the projects that happen, and nowadays is way more sophisticated. The elites have a little bit more power now, and I don't know, man. It's just after looking at all of this and like seeing that, wow, like there's some really sick people in this world that is making some really crazy shit on the background. For me, it's so much insane information. Like it's just so much. It's just like I would just wish I could talk like for about this for as long as I could, and because there's so much and my brain is so little. So those were just part of the the MK Ultra programs, the sub MK Ultra programs, the black budget underground projects that is going on even today. Human hybrid, the entire genome of a human was completely added, written, things like that. America is being taken over by this entity where you're no longer allowed to feel love or emotion or okay, I want to talk about this. This is going to be crazy. Okay. After they were able to map the entire human psychological and predict a human behavior, basically, if I feel like eating, hey, I feel like eating a burger, they can understand this information before I even think about it, or they can make me do an action before even I think about the action. Why were they doing this? Why was the project very extremely classified? Was this they did already, so trying to put into words, here's what they're trying to do. They have cell towers everywhere. They got radio and radiated satellite systems up in the air. They got radio towers, cell phone towers. They got all these, and as well as classified equipment that we never know of. We don't even know if they're really radio towers. There could be something else, and there are something else. They're not Public is not allowed to know. Okay, so they created, like on Google Maps. Okay, on Google Maps you can get as close as possible to one specific location, and then that specific location you're going to see structures and buildings and cars and at a frozen information, right. So they are able to map everyone, a person, in every building and everywhere, using cell phone, radio, and everything else. They can see what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you're moving, how you open and close the door, when you open and close the door. And some people they were not able to predict. Some people was just random. Some people they were able to control, manipulate, and predict their movements and all that. That information was extremely valuable. They wanted to know who is a person who can think for himself, who can do the things that is not predictable. So they were trying to get this information as much as possible, and they were targeting people that were random to study them, and they put these people covertly to monitor these people to understand why they're so random, why are they unpredictable. Basically, it's just like that movie Divergent. So take that information and hold it real quick, because this is going to be a little bit crazy. So they created a super AI system that replicated the human life on this planet. This AI system replicated the reality of the entire world, because it monitors the whole world. It monitors every moving objects, even the weather. It knows exactly how every information is being moved into this reality. This AI replicated into multiple AIs the same reality that we live in right now, and they can pinpoint and predict people's behaviors and psychological. They can change people's psychological behavior patterns, because they want to be able to predict the outcome of the future, so that they can make a precautious action before us, the general population, makes an action. Basically, it's like this. They created two realities based on information and analysis, as well as using psychological behavior editing and re-editing in the human genes to make them do unpredictable or predictable actions, so that they can replicate the reality into a subsystem where they can understand the action of how we operate, and they can predict different realities and different events that's going to happen in this world, and then they can make an action so that that action doesn't happens, that's not benefiting their entire structure of total control society. That's why Elon Musk, the CEO of SpaceX, a very intelligent person, this system, he knows about the system. I know about the system. I know a lot of shit. Not to brag about it, but the reason why he was saying that this AI system can replicate reality of this world and predict every movement, and it can understand the human pattern before we make an action. So I mean, it feels like it's game over, but the AI is not 100% sophisticated. This AI system is not sophisticated enough to make the right prediction, because they lost an election by action. But was losing the election the right action, or was an action bill to prevent another action by this super intelligence militarized AI system? That's where I'm at right now. It really seems like the entire political structure of this country is based off this AI system that replicates the entire reality and can manipulate and control an outcome of an action of society to prevent a horrible decision made that could change the reality of all us humans. So this system is extremely dangerous, and people have their hands on it, and they can predict, edit, make. Like I can go to any store, and there could be a girl in there, and she could just feel love for me out of the blue, and she's just gonna fall in love with me for not knowing why she's feeling that way. And this system is real. Um, it's insane how much control these people have in this reality. It's out of control. It's like it is extremely out of control. Um, and I don't know, how do you fight a system like this? How do you fight a system that knows ahead of time? Like, how do you have free will? Like, God gave us free will. How do we even function in God's way anymore? You know, they want open borders all over the world because they want to create the entire control grid of the whole world. And they have not taken over the entire world yet. They are with different fraction of their own control corporation and financial institution, so that they can expand their control grid to different third world countries, because they're not 100% fully in control of everything. They are in a certain percentage, but they're not fully in control of everything. But I could be wrong. So that's just my research that I did, and all the paperwork that I saw here on my laptop. I'm stuck right now at understanding free will in a world where everything's predictable. How do I live my life knowing that a control grid knows exactly and can predict my behavior and prevent me from becoming things I want to be in life? Like, it's insane. Like, these people are playing God. They're trying to take God's hand away from this place and have this AI control everything. Like, this is a huge slap on God's face right now. And I hope people wake up.